Starting in May, Chinese people in many cities have been forced to take nucleic acid tests on a regular basis. After 3 years of dealing with the epidemic, China's health code system has become very well developed. If one has a positive nucleic acid test or comes from what is called a moderate or high-risk area, one gets a red code. If one is considered to be at some risk, it's a yellow code. If one isn't at risk, for the time being, the code is green. But currently, if one doesn't have a nucleic acid test within 3 or 5 days, the health code will turn gray or yellow directly. It's the new mandate introduced by the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, in May, called Normalizing Nucleic Acid Testing. It means that going forward, nucleic acid testing for Chinese residents will become a long-term, regular activity. As of May 3rd, many cities are promoting regular nucleic acid testing, making a negative test result one of the prerequisites for entering public places and riding public transportation. Among them, a southern city started normalized nucleic acid testing on April 28th, requiring citizens to complete the testing within 48 hours and every 48 hours thereafter before they can travel normally. Beijing, on the other hand, has notified the public of regular testing that, starting from May 5th, they should be tested once a week and have a negative certificate within 7 days to enter public places and take public transportation. Wuhan requires from May 3rd that if people don't take a test for more than 72 hours, their health codes will become gray. The city of Dalian has similar regulations requiring people to take tests once a week, and if they don't obey, their health code will become gray as well. No one knows how long the so-called normality will last. The CCP hasn't explained to the public exactly how long such normality will last. Maybe a few months or perhaps years. The CCP has a way of always finding opportunities to profit from people, even during an epidemic. In 2021, it was mandatory vaccines, and in 2022, after the credit for domestic vaccines has almost gone bankrupt, mandatory nucleic acid testing becomes the new way for profiting. Let's take a look at how the CCP is making fortunes from domestic vaccines. Despite claims by the Chinese Health Commission that vaccination is voluntary, several sources indicate that forced vaccination is a political mandate from higher authorities that local officials need to enforce. So imagine the huge market and profits with a national population of 1.4 billion people, and each individual with 3 shots. Let's try a conservative number of 1 billion people with 3 shots per person. Take the government of Jiangsu province, for example. It purchased vaccines from Sinopharm and Cushing Biopharm at a price of 200 renminbi per dose, or about $30 a dose. It means the size of the vaccine market is about $89.1 billion. If we expand 1 billion people to 1.4 billion people with 3 doses per person, then the market size is $124.7 billion. Compared to vaccines produced in Western countries, Chinese vaccines have higher gross margins with net profits as high as 40% to 50% as a result of overpricing and lower costs. The Chinese government has approved a total of 7 vaccines, the most significant of which are Cushing and Sinopharm. Both have been approved by the World Health Organization, or WHO, for emergency licensing and are widely used in low and middle income countries. Let's take a look at Cushing's performance. On April 30th, 2022, Cushing Biopharm filed its 2021 annual report with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. According to the data, its sales in 2021 were over $19 billion, up 3,691.6% year over year. Net income reached over $14 billion. It's 5 times the annual profit of Baidu, the Chinese equivalent of Google. Are Chinese vaccines effective? The overseas Chinese media did a statistical survey in January using 2 cities where the outbreak was relatively serious at the time. It concluded that the vaccination rate of infected people with the domestic vaccine was over 90%, much higher than the rate of uninfected people. Researchers at the University of Hong Kong and the Chinese University of Hong Kong School of Medicine said in a December 2021 statement that even with 3 doses of the Cushing vaccine, it provided no protection against the Omicron variant. Some may argue that vaccination is free in many Chinese cities. The truth is there isn't free lunch in the world. The so-called free is paid by for the government, and the government collects money from people via taxes. People also have to pay into the health insurance funds. Now, in the name of anti-epidemic and immunization, the money is channeled to interest groups. Only in China can there be such a lucrative business. The market, production, sales, prices, etc. are all monopolized, and all the steps are manipulated in the hands of a few high-ranking Communist Party officials. And regardless of whether the vaccines are effective or not, and regardless of the quality of the vaccines, they are all procured by the government and paid for by the Health Insurance Fund and the Treasury. No one is held responsible for the quality of the vaccines, as no one dares to raise questions, or their voices, as even they themselves could be made to disappear. Starting in May, without regular nucleic acid testing, Chinese people will find it difficult to get around. In most cities, people have to pay for their own tests. Only a few cities are still free for the time being. The price of a nucleic acid test ranges from $9 to $33 depending on where one lives. Even at a minimal cost of $9 per test, one test every 3 days for a month costs $270 for a family of 3. It's a heavy burden for a family with no income and no work during the outbreak.
我们人均年收入的平均水平是3万元人民币，但是有6亿人每个月的收入也就是1000元。1000元，在一个中等城市，可能租房都困难。
No CCP officials have come forward to explain why one city requires the test once every 3 days, and another city wants it every 2 days, or whether in the future such tests will be required once a day or several times a day. These new rules seem to be decisions made by officials based on their individual feelings or judgments with no facts or scientific basis. If we were to dig into the chain of interest, it is entirely possible that those at the source, namely the medical sector and the manufacturers of nucleic acid reagents, would have advocated to the government officials to make testing as frequent as possible. It is important to note that the cities requiring routine testing aren't limited to those with confirmed cases. Cities without confirmed cases have also been required to take the test. For example, in a northeast city, residents complained, "There are no confirmed cases in this area, so why do we need 48-hour tests to access public places?" Does the city not even want its economy this year and will rely on nucleic acid testing for its GDP? So how much profit can the CCP's powerful and rich syndicate get out of the big pie of nucleic acid testing? The numbers are staggering. In February 2022, a pro-Xi Jinping scholar and research fellow at Harvard Yenqing Institute revealed the following in a taped conversation.
科技部现在最大的问题，德华他们都在，你们了解的情况比我们。
The biggest problem with China's Ministry of Science and Technology is that, well, you know more about it than I do. The most serious problem is that the development of nucleic acid reagents and vaccines has become a profit-making tool directly related to those in power. The white gloves and family members of our leaders have gotten their hands on this nucleic acid reagents, causing the entire region to be tested. Whenever there are 1 or 2 cases, they want the procurement volume of nucleic acid tests. With the procurement volume, there is profit. I got the figures the day before yesterday. This bullshit group has made over 105 billion US dollars, or 670 billion renminbi, from nucleic acid tests alone. Think about it. No country in the world uses this method to fight the outbreak. This method is actually funneling profits to the interest groups, including forced vaccination and push for 3 or 4 doses. All of them have something to do with the interest groups behind them. That is to say, nucleic acid testing and vaccines are regarded as a large piece of the pie by the high-level CCP groups, ranging from members of the Politburo Standing Committee to the families of the CCP elders. While Xi Jinping takes the blame for insisting on a zero-COVID policy, these powerful groups claim huge profits. As local officials down below, they are subordinate to their own factions at the top, and while the top brass takes the big bucks, they take the small bucks. This is the reason behind the extreme measures in China's outbreak prevention policy, as it's becoming increasingly irrational, driven by massive profits.
上来歇一会吧。
The chief macro analyst at China's Soochow Securities recently published a report saying that according to estimates, China's insistence on implementing regular nucleic acid testing in all first and second tier cities would cost a maximum of about 1.7 trillion renminbi a year, accounting for 1.5% of China's official GDP and 8.7% of public revenue in 2021. This figure is higher than China's total military expenditure of 1.37 trillion renminbi for the People's Liberation Army in 2021. However, it is strange that this Chinese analyst thinks that this approach is worthwhile because it's less damaging than lockdowns. The question he is reluctant to confront is, why does the CCP have to lock down the cities? Why is it necessary to bring such massive damage to the national economy? For people, the test results are like a verdict of their fate, and fate often plays tricks on them. For example, in a wealthy area of Shanghai, where luxury homes are worth more than 10 million US dollars each, news broke on May 8th that 5 residents had tested positive. The entire neighborhood was horrified. The CCP policy dictates that if there is 1 positive case in a building, all people in the building will be quarantined. Luckily, the 5 residents who had been taken away insisted that they were fine, and they were tested at another hospital, where results all came back negative. Finally, they were released and returned home. The information from the residents of the area shows that the company that made the mistake has made the same mistakes many times before, but it remains an officially designated testing agent. Moreover, in mainland China, one needs to be confident in one's own health in the face of the outbreak so as to avoid the fate of being dragged away into a horrific quarantine camp randomly. I tell you, if you don't open the door, we will break in. Are you going to open the door? If not, we'll break down the door. For the last time, will you open the door? Open the door or be punished. If we break in, you'll have to bear the legal consequences. The vaccines and nucleic acid tests we are talking about here are the most important tools for the CCP power elite to profit from. Yet under the corrupt bureaucratic culture of the CCP, there are many such opportunities hidden behind the Great Plague. For example, there are many online stories suggesting that people have been taking advantage of the lockdowns and lack of supplies. They buy eggs cheap from out of town, bring them into Shanghai, then sell them at high prices. They are able to make huge profits, something like over $95,000 a day. Of course, such an amount doesn't go into the pockets of any individual businessman. Because the city of Shanghai is very tightly controlled, the streets are set up with barbed wire to block the traffic. For trucks to get in and out of the city and to cross different urban areas, they need passes of various kinds. Without the help of officials at different levels, it's practically impossible for trucks from out of town to get into Shanghai and sell eggs.
478啊，这里几个鸡蛋？
那也得要400多，
那不能要400多吧？
你以为吓人吗？400、500块钱，400。
So behind high-priced goods, there is a great probability that government officials are involved in corruption and raking in kickbacks. Businessmen make a fortune, and so do officials, which is why the goods have to be sold so expensively, and they are not being stopped or investigated. Should you buy eggs that are not within the scope of the official's permission, the consequences can be serious. In this video, a woman secretly bought a tray of eggs and distributed them to her neighbors. She was reported by a man and had to write an apology and face the admonition of the police who came to the door in the middle of the night.
你让我情绪控制，大半夜让我控制情绪，我保证书也写了，我钱也退了，我请大家吃个鸡蛋，我怎么了？
你确定你所有的鸡蛋都在这里了？
都是这里。
啊，那么后续如果有鸡蛋来跟你是没关系的。
对。
不是你说是团购，或者我说是团购，我们上报，现在报上去说是团购，这批物资一定要收回，这是第一个。第二个，我也是办事，对吧？上级部门给的指示是，明天早上之前你把鸡蛋退出来。
In Shanghai, many people are starving not because there aren't enough supplies donated by the society, but because many Shanghai neighborhood committees have monopolized the donated supplies and sold them instead of distributing them to the residents.
居委会藏菜啊，藏了几箱子菜在里面，被人翻出来了啊。是那个鸡跟肉都已经早上被运走了，现在只剩蔬菜了，已经烂掉了。
Recently, a major disinfection campaign has been launched in Shanghai. So-called epidemic prevention personnel can enter private homes and loot people's belongings without a hitch. We were taken away for quarantine due to close contact with an infected person. There was a confirmed case in my home. The anti-epidemic workers came in to disinfect my home. All my stuff is gone now, including clothes, cushions on the sofa, curtains, bed coverings. Everything is gone. Cash is gone too. They tossed all the food in my fridge. Nothing is left. I have a total of nearly $900 missing, 6,000 renminbi. Who is responsible for this? No one. In addition, many Shanghai residents have reported that they haven't received the government's deliveries of vegetables, but have instead received a large amount of special medicine that claims to play a vigorous role in COVID-19 treatment. It was developed by an academician of the Chinese Academy of Engineering. After the COVID-19 broke out 2 years ago, he quickly amassed a fortune with this product. He is now worth 18.8 billion renminbi, or $2.8 billion US. As a blatant case of robbing the poor to enrich the rich, it hasn't gone unnoticed. In mid-April, the son of the Wander Group chairman and a billionaire, a wealthy young man from Shanghai, and an online celebrity as well, publicly questioned the usefulness of this product and shared an article on Weibo calling on the China Securities Regulatory Commission to investigate Yiling Pharmaceuticals, causing its share price to fall significantly for days. On April 19th, The young man wrote furiously on WeChat, "The nucleic acid test every morning is not about positivity or negativity, but about your slavery and dignity. Starting today, I won't be going out for tests anymore." As a result, on the same day, April 19th, his Weibo account was officially banned. On April 27th, his Weibo account was completely blocked. His more than 40 million followers were cleared out overnight with all the content removed. Currently, his account reads, "The account is now unavailable for viewing due to violations of laws." To put it in another perspective, CCP officials from all levels are frantically ransoming the country and engaging in corruption. Does it mean that they all have been alerted to the fact that the ship of the Communist Party is about to sink and they are rushing to salvage money and food for self-preservation, or getting ready to jump the ship before it sinks? End of the world escape. So similar. Just like these end of world movies.